All right. Sup, y'all. Um, I'm not usually the kind of guy that does this kind of reaction content, but there's been a bit of a discussion recently that I've witnessed on the interwebs. Um, Firstly, there was this video by Riker where he was talking about this stuff a little bit, and now I found this video from this guy. Let me Sammy Caps. Shout out to you. And he has this video called "Why Live Service Doesn't Work for ARPGs," and I found these takes kind of curious to me because personally, I believe that ARPGs and live service are actually a match made in heaven, and these people kind of disagree with that. And yeah, I would like to address that and tell you guys what I think. Now, do I have any authority in this kind of topic? Of course not. But this is just my opinion. And yeah, I'm just curious what you guys might think about it. So let's have a look at this video and see where we get.
Everyone's familiar with the term live service game, meaning every couple of months a game gets an update and it's live. Well, in the ARPG landscape, today we're going to ponder the question, can it survive? And more importantly, does it work? And the evidence I'd like to present to you today is the fact that I know the games that I prefer to play in the ARPG landscape, just let's say, don't have that great of a track record. And they all adopt this principle of being a live service game.
All right, so already starting with a little bit of an issue for me. Like, they don't have a track record, which in my opinion is completely provably wrong and false. But yeah,
The game gets updated frequently. For Path of Exile, they call them leagues. In Diablo, they're called seasons. In Last Epoch, they're called cycles, and etc. and etc.
back in Diablo 2, the original Diablo 2, they were already also called seasons. Just in Diablo 2, there was no new content every season.
But the point of this video is I don't know if live services can work in today's environment. We as gamers consume games at a quicker rate as far as I'm concerned. I remember when I first started playing video games, and I may be dating myself here, that was when you physically had to go to
Just boosted the volume a bit. I hope this is better.
the store, purchase a hard copy, put it in your console, and you would consume that game until you were bored with it, completed the game, and really the only thing close to being live service was the fact that you were done with the game and you went and you purchased another game. There was
So first of all, I remember these times. I lived those times. I played games back then when that was a thing. But I think this is important. So the cycle pretty much back then, as you mentioned, is you bought a game, you played the game, you finished the game, you moved on to the next game. We're going to get back to that.
was no live service. It was purchase, consume, you're done, go purchase another one, consume, you're done. Now, this is how it used to be. Now, today, specifically in the ARPG landscape, there are live service games. And the games that I mentioned earlier all adopt this methodology. However, all of them struggle to maintain a consistent player base. And there's no better way of demonstrating this than actually looking at the numbers. Now,
So this is the first point. They struggle to maintain a consistent player base. Now, what does that even mean? Maintaining a consistent player base, I think, from his point of view, means that the levels are the same all the time. All the time. Not on average, all the time. They go up, they stay up. They go even higher, they stay up. Now let's have a look at his numbers. But first of all, I would like to ask you the question: is that even a desirable thing? Is it desirable for a game to have constant players at the top, even though the game itself, for instance, let's have a look at Path of Exile, for instance, the game is essentially a free game. So does grinding gear games want people to stay in the game all the time? A quick answer to that is, of course not. Why? Because people will spend money in the game, usually at the start of a new league. Then they will play the game, and then they will drop off, which means they won't cost GGG money. Running a live an online game like Path of Exile, or even a Diablo 4, or even a Last Epoch, because he really doesn't talk about offline play in this whole video, right? It's all about the online part of the game. So running these games costs a lot of money. It's actually quite expensive. So if you have like a constant uptick of players, you also need like a constant flow of income, right? So, and that usually doesn't work really well for free games like this. So you then need like microtransactions and all that stuff, which all these games obviously have. But the question is it actually desirable for the game to keep those players, and can it actually work, right? That's the other question. Let's have a look at the provided evidence here.
Now, let's start with Path of Exile.
First flaw: Google Trends, not player numbers. Just saying.
Probably or arguably the most popular and what some would classify as the best ARPG in the market today. And this is Google Trends. I'm sure you guys are all aware of it. And
most popular? I don't think so, to be honest.
And it's an indication of the popularity on the web of searching and looking for a topic. And in this case, I wanted to see the popularity of Path of Exile. And as you can see, the ebbs and flows of Path of Exile. Now, these correlate with when Path of Exile launches a league. So when Path of Exile launches a new league, the popularity of the game online goes up, and then little by little, it gradually goes down. Now, to me, this represents players leaving the game, and then they...
Obviously, it means players leaving the game. The thing, though, that none of these people that have made these arguments actually say is why this is a bad thing, right?
They come back when a new league is dropped, and then it whittles down, then it goes back up, and you get it. So again, there is no consistency. So there's no new league comes and it flatlines all the way across. So maintaining a consistent player base.
Also wrong. This graph perfectly shows that Path of Exile especially has maintained a consistent average player level pretty drastically, right? You can see it. It's pretty much the same every league. That is a form of consistency. Now, it's not like a flat line of players all the way, but as mentioned before, that's not a desirable thing. Actually, let me have a quick look at these graphs here. This is the Steam charts for PoE. It's a little bit small. Let me see if I can make it bigger. But as you can actually see, starting from 2014, PoE pretty much, even though it was very gradually and slowly, but these spikes, they grow bigger every league, right? They've peaked here. I'm not sure which season that was, at 209,000 players, but they pretty much come back to roughly the same player amounts, right? You can't tell me this isn't consistent. This is consistency, and this is an actually deliberate design choice. This is how ARPGs work and how they are meant to be consumed.
The ebbs and
This has nothing to do with live service, right? Diablo 2 back in the day was the same thing. You would play a character, you would grind out until level 99, you would hit all your goals for items, and then you were done with the character. You wouldn't be playing that character for forever and ever and ever. So you stopped, right? And then you would think about, I actually already have done all the content. There's no new stuff. So maybe I just stopped playing it all along. And this is where today's ARPGs are different. And in my opinion, way better.
flows go up and down, up and down. There's no consistency in maintaining a player base. Now,
as I said, that's not wrong. That's not true. The player base of Path of Exile is probably one of the most loyal player bases a game has ever had, and these numbers just don't represent the reality.
Diablo 4, another popular ARPG. As you can see, that massive spike is when the game was launched back in June. And as you can see, Diablo 4 has not had the ebbs and flows of Path of Exile. And we're not going to get into that, but you can see the disastrous decline where literally there is almost zero interest right now. Now, there's a new season coming up.
All right. I think this is also super disingenuous and actually interpreting the data completely wrong. Now, this is only Google Trends, right? This is not like empirical data about actual player numbers, right? But it also doesn't really matter because all Google Trends actually does is it shows your relative interest, right? So this peak here at the left here is basically when the game was launched, and this is the highest interest the game has ever had. Now, what happened when this game was launched? I've put this little article here. It sold over $666 million in 5 days. Okay. Now, given the box prices around, I don't know, 70, 80, I don't know how much you paid. Let's assume that's like 100 million or 10 million copies. Sorry, not 100 million. That would be a little bit high. But like 10 million copies sold, right? That's a big fucking number. PoE, every season peaks at around 200,000, right? That's like 50 times less. So that's already like a big difference. The initial spike for Diablo 4 was so fucking massive that even those initial sales in the first 5 days probably crushed the money that PoE ever made during its existence. So that's what I mean. That's why I don't think that PoE actually is the most popular ARPG. I think that Diablo 4, at least when you think about it from a developer side, is way more successful than PoE. Now, does Diablo 4 have a lot of issues for like returning players? Of course it has. But as you can also see, there in fact are like recurring spikes. Now, of course, these look like very tiny hills, but if you compare that to like PoE, and if you would consider how much actually this is, like if this means like 10 million, then this still is like a million, right? That's pretty much. If you actually would think that these somehow represent players. So that's actually still way more than PoE. So that's why I think this graph and the way he interpreted this graph is pretty bad. I'm not going to talk about the things about Diablo 4 and why it's different, because Diablo 4 is a game that you pay upfront to buy, and a lot of people, especially like from the Blizzard universe, are actually people that buy a game, they play it once, and then they move on, right? They play these games, and that's the thing about ARPGs in general. Most people play these games like single-player games, right? They treat them like single-player games. These are not competitive games. These are story-focused single-player games for a lot of people. They play through the campaign, and then they are done with it. And then you have a lot of more engaged players or hardcore players, or whatever you want to call them, and they are this recurring group of players that will return to the game and grind out every season, maybe invest some money in season passes. But I think most people will just play the initial game and then they return when the next expansion pack arrives. But these are the like super casual kind of players or whatever you want to call them. But still, these numbers still are actually quite a lot. And I don't think that Diablo 4 actually suffers from like low player numbers at all. Like given it's just relatively, of course, to the huge spike that there was in the beginning. These numbers seem small, but also relatively to the other games that exist, it still is pretty fucking successful. Now, does it have flaws? Of course, it has. Blizzard is working on a lot of these things. They seem to be making great changes, and I would assume that this would cause maybe a little bit of a bigger spike for the next season. But saying that this is like a huge fucking disaster and the game is crashing and burning, it's just not real. It's just not a thing.
In May, and I would imagine we're going to see a spike because season 4, what we know of season 4, has gotten very good reviews, and there is going to be a spike. But my point is
also you always need to consider like the time span, right? We are talking, this is like April 16th, so this is this day almost like a year, right? It's basically a year, so that's the time span we're looking at. This gets important because he's going to talk about Lost Epoch.
There is no consistency in the MAUs, monthly active users, therefore a consistent player base. And again, Diablo 4 live service game, probably one of the,
and again, no real reason mentioned why consistency is necessary. Why don't people play The Witcher 3 even though it's been out for like 10 years or so and didn't get any new content, right? Why don't they play it? The answer is because it's a single player game that didn't get new content. So at one point you're done. And this is basically the gist for ARPGs. And if you don't get that reset, that reason to start a new season, even in Diablo 2, which didn't get any new content, but they still had this reset, right? They had this season and then people were like, okay, let's race, let's do something about it, right? That's a reason to come back. And it totally makes sense that people want this reason to come back after they have basically beaten the game once, right? I mean, if you play a season, like for example, in Diablo 4, or let's say Path of Exile, you play a season, you play a character, you play it to reach the goal that you want to reach. Like, let's say in Diablo, you want to reach level 100, or in PoE, you want to beat a certain boss or something, or want to find a specific item, whatever goal you set, you will get X amount of hours out of this. And these hours usually are a lot. Like 20 hours, probably not 50 hours, maybe in Diablo 4. But that's still a lot of time. Especially if you compare this to like buying a new game, like buy a new single player game. Like there aren't a lot of single player games these days, but if you buy a new game, if you get 50 hours of gameplay out of them, that's actually quite a bit these days. So, I'm struggling to see the point here. Now going on to to Lost Epoch. As you can see, this is a graph going back to January, so 4 months. This is the first season. This is the spike at launch, and then it falls off. As we have seen from the other graphs, this is this is the only thing that could happen, right? There is no way to design a game in a way that you can play it indefinitely unless you add like a competitive nature to it, or you add like an endless grind, but even then people will at some point just stop playing, right? Like for example in D3, I think you could basically grind Infinite Paragon, but there was no point in doing so.
Hyped, talked about, endeared, loved by so many when this game came out by an indie studio, 11th Hour Games, and that is Lost Epoch. And as you can see here, 265,000 players. That was its all-time peak. Okay.
Even better than Path of Exile. One by that.
Okay.
Not that it's important, but it's a big deal for a new game made by a small indie, really small studio. Yeah.
That's right here when this game launched in February 21st, I believe. And everybody slammed that game. Now, they had a disastrous launch of 1.0. There was a
Only if you were playing online, which I didn't do. And if you have the choice, probably don't play games online at launch. That's just my experience.
lot of
Especially, and this is one of the things that people also don't think about enough, in my opinion. If you have a game like Last Epoch, which in my opinion a lot of players play like a single player game, they don't care about online interactions, right? Especially in Last Epoch, there's like really great mode for solo self-found, right, with the prophecy system and stuff like that. Why would you play this game online? What's like, unless you want to play with friends, of course, but if you like me and play the game single player, why not just play it offline? And in Last Epoch, you can actually play it fully offline. Like, you can disconnect it completely from Steam. That means these numbers don't really represent the actual player numbers, in my opinion. I don't know how many players actually play offline, but this is something to consider. And if you played the game offline, like I did, it was amazing at the start. There was no issues at all.
technological issues with technology and game freezing, players not being able to play online. Now, they do have an offline moding. I'm not going to get into all of that. They had their problems. And they've made many, many, many hot fixes as well. My point, though, is look,
They had their problems when it comes to servers and stuff. That's true. I don't think they actually expected that much of that many players. But as I mentioned, if you played the game offline, I didn't have a lot of real issues. Like not a lot of bugs. It was, in my opinion, it was a pretty polished release.
look at this drop off. This is in light of the fact that Last Epoch was revered. Like, even look at this.
So what? People bought the game. People played the game for like a week, 2 weeks, a month, depending on what kind of player you are. You could finish the single player, the story campaign in like, I don't know, 20 hours or so. It isn't the longest single player game. Then you would dabble a bit in the end game, and then maybe you would create another character. Then you had like 50 hours. I think I had like 60 hours when I played the game in the beginning, and then you move on. It's a $30 game. Like, what's the expectation here? Why do you feel entitled to a game entertaining you indefinitely? That it doesn't make any sense to me, especially in an ARPG. An ARPG is about setting a goal and reaching that goal. You grind to that goal. You reach your items that you want to kill, a boss that you maybe want to kill. In the Last Epoch, you would go to like a corruption level or whatever, in the what's it called, the Atlas thingy at the end. I'm blanking out on the name of it, but it doesn't matter. Of course, and that's what he's going to say pretty soon. There is a little bit of lag in actual endgame content. Right? There aren't really any pinnacle bosses or stuff like that that you can actually set as a goal to reach. But it doesn't matter because it's a new game. You can get a lot of it out of a new game even without those things. That's the same stuff that happens with Diablo. It wasn't an issue. People still played that game for dozens, hundreds of hours, and they got their money's worth out of it. And then in the next season, they are going to add this kind of content, and then you have another reason to return, and then you're getting pretty much the same kind of hours out of that game, and hours of enjoyment, in my opinion, like great enjoyment. And you don't even have to pay for it in Last Epoch's case, right? It's going to be free. The same for Diablo. The same for PoE. You don't have to pay a cent for it. It's basically another game worth of played hours out of it for free. And that's amazing. And that's why I think this model works freaking amazing for ARPGs.
This 77% rating, favorable rating on SteamDB. All right.
And that's despite the fact that they had the city launch. Steam. When a game launches poorly, the ratings go down. That's what's happened, and the game is still in recovery from that, even now, right? So it's a fucking amazing game.
Very, very popular game. Everybody was talking about their faction system, how amazing it was, their itemization, their crafting. I can go on and on and on. Probably the one thing this game lacks is the end game, where there's just not enough of it. Now, the talk is that
I agree with pretty much all he said. Great game, lacking a bit of end game, but for the first release, end game isn't super important, right? You can still get a lot out playing like the base game, trying around, playing around with the different classes, and you still have like a lot of time played. You won't get to like thousands of hours really quickly because you can play it indefinitely for 24 hours a day, but I don't think that's a desirable thing. Like, I still haven't heard like one argument why it is necessary or why it is a good thing that this happens, this player curve.
What we've heard is that that's coming in the next cycle. However, this game has done a major nosedive.
And you really have a hard time to believe that this curve is going to go up again when the next patch comes out. Is it going to reach like the first level? Maybe not, but that's also, I believe that's to be expected, right? There's a lot of these players like Diablo that play a game and they are done with it once they've played it once. But this curve is obviously going to go back up again, right?
And again, live service. Now, like I stated earlier, Path of Exile adopts leagues. Diablo 4 seasons. Last Epoch calls them cycles. So every 3 months, they bring on.
I also would argue that calling these games live service is a little bit difficult. They don't get permanently like new content like every week. Like they don't do the Helldivers thing, right? Where they try to actually keep your players playing all the time, right? They don't do that. And that's deliberate, right? That's just a design decision. And in my opinion, I personally prefer that, right? I'm not playing Helldivers anymore because I feel like if I stick to that game, I won't be able to do anything else. So I got the fuck out of that game, and that's the reason, because I actually want to enjoy other games. I want to play other games, and that's why I like to play ARPGs, because I know that I can get into that new season. Like there's going to be a new season for Diablo 4 in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm going to play that for a week, and then I'm done. And then there's probably going to be the last Epoch season, and I'm going to play that. Going to be done. Then I can maybe go back to playing World of Warcraft or whatever I want to play, right? And that's a good thing. That's great. That's awesome.
A new season, a new league, a new cycle. Live service game. So
I don't know what he's doing with all these quotes all the time.
Probably the popular ARPGs out there right now, and all of them are struggling with the same thing.
No struggle at all. It's not a struggle. There is no struggle.
A eroding player base.
Not eroding at all. As I mentioned earlier, this is Path of Exile. There isn't a lot of erosion going on. It's been pretty consistent. Like it has, there are some spikes, but on average, players come back to these games because they know they get good stuff every season. And that's the point, right? You have to actually deliver good content
over the length of time of their live service. How can ARPGs maintain a consistent MAU?
They don't. ARPGs are not made. These are not MMOs, right? They are not meant to have consistent MAUs, right? MAUs is not a KPI, to use some business buzzwords, that studios like Grinding Gear or Blizzard or whatever they're called for Last Epoch, would look at, what they care about is when we release these new updates, what happens then, right? How many players actually come back? That's the point they care about. And then they care about, okay, how much conversion do we actually get during these times in like microtransactions, right? So we can actually pay the bills, right? Especially for PoE, that's all their income is based on that, right? And then, to be honest, they probably aren't too fussed about if you get the fuck out of the game pretty quick, because if you play a lot of their game, they actually have to pay for the servers, right? So of course they don't think that way, but if you consider just the financial situation, that's pretty much also a positive side effect of the whole design philosophy of leagues and seasons and stuff like that.
How can ARPGs maintain a consistent player base? Every game, and these are top ARPGs, these aren't nobodies. Yes, some of them are developed by AAA studios, one of them, and two of them are developed by.
I would argue that GGG pretty much has reached AAA kind of sizes, right? I think they were talking that they are at least above 200 people working there, so that's pretty sizable. I think that's AAA, and I would consider Path of Exile, even though it's indie, but from the scale, PoE 2, sorry, but from the scale and the visuals and all that stuff, I would consider it a AAA or maybe triple I, however you want to call it. Is that's what I think it's getting, it's not like Blizzard size, but there's a spectrum, right? What consists of like small indie and then big AAA, and I think that GGG pretty much goes more into the big AAA direction than it goes into the small indie, but that's just my opinion.
Indie studios. However, let's take a step back and analyze this. These are 3 to 4 popular ARPGs. All of them share the same trait. They can't maintain a steady player base.
It's almost as if this was by design.
They're all live services. What is the problem? And I want to present the following evidence, Your Honor, and that is the fact that I don't think the ARPG genre.
It's genre, not genre. What the fuck? Sorry, this guy confuses me a bit. Not gonna lie. I'm curious about the evidence, though.
Is equipped for live service, and let me elaborate. Now, ARPGs. What are ARPGs? Action, okay? Loot, a progression of character. Your character, I like to call it, and I've coined it many times, rags to riches. You start with nothing, you grind the game, you do the campaign, you get loot is dropping, you're killing enemies, loot is dropping, and you're evolving your loot, you're leveling up your character. Point is, over the time of the grinding, you hopefully are making your character higher level, more powerful, being able to complete and challenge the harder content in the game. There's progression in the game.
Okay, and here is when it gets important. Is this progression, is it infinite? Or is there an end to it? Path of Exile has a max level. Diablo 4 has a max level. Last Epoch has a max level. At some point, you can't get stronger in these games. So you will reach max level, you will reach your optimal loot, and then what? You destroy all the content, and then you are, wait for it, you're done. You need to start over, which means you either create like a new character, you respec, whatever, or you just stop and you wait for the new content. And why can you do that? Because you know There is going to be new content. There is going to be new leagues. If there wasn't new content, people would still continue playing the game, right? There's still a pretty healthy community that like to play Diablo 2. But that's despite there being no content, not because there is no new league system, right? They play it because despite there being no new content, and I'm actually not super following the D2 Resurrected scene. I think they're actually getting patches right now, but I'm not for sure. So there would still be players, and as you can see, there are still people playing Last Epoch, right? It's a small number, but they are still playing people that just love this game, and that's okay, right? The games there is no way to make a game where you could play indefinitely without having like an infinite progression, but you would also need to have infinite goals, and this is just not going to work.
Progression means time. It's not you get into the game and you're set. Now you just play the game. No, there is.
I don't disagree. Progression needs time, but it's a finite amount of time. And it's not years of time. It's given how much you play, it's maybe weeks of time. It may be months of time. For some player, it means days of time, and they're pretty much done with the game, right?
Is a
like a super pro Path of Exile, like Cicerone or so. He gets his character up in like a couple of days, and then he pretty much can beat all the hard content, and then he needs to set himself new goals, right? So what does he do? He tries to do trading, or he creates a new character, or he wants to do like specific kind of content, right? And that's how these people keep playing, right? They start over and over and over. They start new over and over, and that's how these games work, right? There is no continuous like play. Not even in Diablo 2, right? At one point, there's just not much more to gain for a player.
Journey in ARPGs, which takes time. Now, what differentiates ARPGs from, let's say, a battle royale game or a low barrier to entry, like a CS:GO, a Fortnite, I think Rainbow
Barrier of entry isn't really a big deal.
Six. These games,
like the most casual player in the world will still play Diablo 4. I don't think that's going to stop them.
you get into the game, you select your load.
Actually, I think that it's most likely for a super casual player to actually dabble into a Diablo 4 than it is for them to play like CSGO. Because the competitive nature and the multiplayer nature of this actually is something that a lot of people struggle with.
Out and you play the game. There is no leveling up. There is no grind.
Except there is. In CSGO, you grind for your rank, right? You want to get like into whatever it's called, Grandmaster or whatever. If you play League of Legends, this is such a weird comparison, because these are actually the games that you can play indefinitely, because every match is unique because you play against human players, right? And you have a goal, you have this carrot ahead of you, which means you can actually grind those games forever. Like when I played Warcraft 3 back in the day, or when I played StarCraft, I played it for like 5 years straight, almost every day, because I wanted to get better. I wanted to rank higher. And that's just something that's not a thing about ARPGs. Now, of course, if the only argument you're actually making is that a service game needs to be a game that you keep playing forever and ever and ever without pause, I think that's just a weird definition, because it's all about the content, right? It's about the new content.
Just, you get into the game, and for example, for Fortnite, you get into a battle arena, you drop into the map with 99 other people, and last man standing wins, right? That's it.
And a whole lot of bots, of course.
And you can play 10 games, you can play 20 games, you can play for 1 hour, you can play for 100 hours. Nothing changes. Only thing that changes is every time you die, you have to load up another game, or if you win, you win. But my point is, there is no progression. There's no end state. The end state is you either win or lose and you go on to the next round. Whereas with ARPGs, there's a journey.
As I said, there is a journey for competitive games as well. It's just different. The game doesn't define the journey as much as it would be in an RPG, right?
There's a time frame. It's not you're in the game and you're done now, you're just killing stuff. Doesn't work like that. And this leads me to my evidence that live services and ARPGs, they don't go hand in hand, because you can't course correct with ARPGs. And let me quantify that before you guys start dropping a
Okay, I've actually watched this video before, and this is where I got really confused. So let's see how this is going to work out.
1,000. What are you talking about? Of course, there's hot fixes. My point is, yes, you can make adjustments here and there.
Or you can just change the whole fucking loot system of a game because you have actually time to do so, because you can actually wait for the next season. Which game has done that? Or which game is currently doing this? Diablo 4 did it. Or is doing it. Diablo 3 actually made that same kind of change back in the day before Reaper of Souls came out. They also overhauled the whole loot system. This is actually poor evidence for your case, because this actually is a point pro the current league and season model of ARPGs.
But at the end of the day, okay, hear me out. And let's look at Diablo 4, for example. Massive holes in the game. Massive. We are now.
I always thought that's just my opinion. I actually thought Diablo 4 was fine from the get-go. I don't think that it's just that massively broken game that people make it out to be. But that's just me.
Walking into season 4, that's 12 months of them trying. Now, they've misstepped from the get-go. We're 12 months out and they have yet to fix the gaping holes in that game. Now, time will tell if season 4 will address some of that. But my point is, yes, you can fix ARPGs, don't get me wrong. The problem is you can't address major issues with a game. Another example.
You evidently can. The game changes pretty drastically between each and every season, especially in like PoE. That's super evident, but also in Diablo 4, it's, in my opinion, there have been pretty big changes between each season. That's why the season model works. Now, let's do a hypothetical, right? Diablo 4 launches, no season, no seasons at all, right? Just you create your first character and you play, and then we wait for 3 years or whatever, and then the next expansion comes, right? The Diablo 2 model, pretty much. Except that Diablo actually had seasons. But seasons could be considered live service or whatever. Do you actually think that Blizzard would invest the amount of energy and money they're doing right now for each season to actually fix the game between those major patches? Of course not. It wouldn't make any sense. Why? People actually bought the game. There is no incentive for people to actually spend more money on the game. And that's part of the harsh reality of game development. In order to be able to support and sustain your game, you actually need to earn money during that time, right? You actually need to support yourself, pretty much. So let's assume that case, Diablo 4 launches. It launches in the state it was. It gets some changes that are needed to get it run right. They have server issues, blah, blah, blah. But big gameplay changes, big loot changes, they wouldn't happen without this live service model, right? It just would stay the same, and Blizzard wouldn't care about it, because all they are focused out is on the next milestone where they actually can make money. And that's true for all ARPGs. Path of Exile is a free-to-play game. They need player spikes to actually earn money. These seasons, you couldn't do this kind of big content updates without these seasons, right? The way Helldivers works is they do like small content drops here and there, right? So they try to keep the players consistently playing. But imagine Helldivers would have had some massively big gameplay system flaw, right? Something about it was horrendously bad. That's pretty hard to fix. And especially when you invest the time to fix it, how do you actually get your players to come back? And that's the big thing about seasons. Seasons are a fresh start. Seasons are a big draw for players, and that's why they work so great. Let's hear what else he has to say. Let's hear about more of this evidence. That's when I'm using the
behind
air quotes.
Last Epoch. So popular coming out of the gate, 265,000. They have a lot of check marks and a lot of things that make an ARPG good. However, they're not maintaining player base, because once the players get to the end game, all that's left to do is monoliths. So the
monolith, that's the word I was looking for earlier. And again, not giving any shred of reasoning why maintaining the player base is actually important or a good thing. It's just oh, it needs to have high number because high number good. And that, in my opinion, just isn't really a thought out argument. But
competitiveness of that is making players say, I'm done. Even me, someone that loves Last Epoch, I thought I'd be playing this game for years. And who knows, Cycle 2, if they address the end game, pinnacle boss.
And that's the thing. It doesn't matter. You are going to be playing this game again when the next season comes out. Right? The reason they're going to do new stuff, and you're going to play it. And then you're going to play it maybe for a little bit longer than you've been now, or not. But it's still going to be a fun and great experience, and you're still going to enjoy it. Right? And that's the thing that's going to keep you coming back. It's the, hey, I had fun with this game. Oh, look, there's a big new update. Let's check it out again. That's awesome.
Bosses are coming. Like I said, they've already have so... I don't know how you can get better with their crafting. I'm sure they will, though. Their quality of life in the game is unbelievable. If they don't make another change, I'm happy with it. Their itemization, the way that ties in with the crafting, again, if they only do minor changes, that's fine by me. There's no gaping holes as far as I'm concerned. Look, no game is perfect.
But you wouldn't be returning to the game, right? You wouldn't be if all they did was minor stuff, you wouldn't really have a reason to replay the game. And that's just inherent to ARPGs, right? As you said, you are done with the content. You need new content. And there's a big plus point in releasing content like funneled in like a big bulky way. So it feels important, and it feels great, and people will look at it. Oh man, there's so much stuff. I haven't played this game for a while, right? You don't get fatigued as much. That's also a big point about this model, right? When you keep playing a game over and over again, at one point you just can't stand it anymore, right? Regardless if there's like new great content or not, at some point you get tired of it, and this gives you the chance to have a breather. After a couple of weeks, you go back to playing whatever else you want to play. Like you play League, you play WoW, you play whatever next great single player, Starfield, whatever. And that's the great thing about it. You might even skip a cycle. Imagine it, skipping a season and coming back half a year later, and then you have so much new content to enjoy. Amazing.
Don't get me wrong, okay, guys? So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Their faction system is off the charts, so good. Whether you want to be a solo self-found player and do the Circle of Fortune, or whether you want to
By the way, I always wondered what the distribution is in this game. How many people actually choose the solo cell phone faction over the other one? Because I'm a solo cell phone player, like hardcore. I play offline, so yeah. Just curious. Maybe if you know, comment down in the comment section. Would be cool.
Trade, buy and sell in the economy, the merchant, like they have it. Their gaping hole is the end game. And this is why you see this massive.
No, this is just the natural flow of things. Even if they had like 20 pinnacle bosses to kill and much more bloated endgame, you still would at one point reach that point where you don't want to play anymore. There's at one point you will just not have stuff to do. It could stretch out the graph. That's possible. Maybe people would stay longer, but you would still get the curve. It's inevitable. It's just the way things flow.
Massive drop. And this is why. So, how can a live service game, this game is being played right now, how can they address their gaping hole of they need more end game, the monolith?
They release a big patch with new cool endgame content during the new season. It's very simple.
Pinnacle bosses, etc., etc. How can they address this during their first cycle?
They don't, and they don't need to. It's not necessary. You still have a lot of fun playing it.
Would have to do a major drop in the cycle. Now that's possible, but not likely. Why? Because in the cases of the other games, Path of Exile, Diablo 4, you need to have a carrot in front of players to come back. They've left. So in Diablo's 4 case, they're going to.
But they have not gone for good, right? And I feel like that's somehow the assumption that if a player leaves the game, it's very unlikely for them to come back, even though the evidence definitely shows that it's not the case. If you have a reputation for making a great game and delivering great content, then people will come back. If Blizzard keeps on fucking up seasons, like they have fucked up 1 or 2 seasons, I won't argue about that. But if they keep doing that over and over again, at one point even the most dedicated players won't come back. But on the other hand, Path of Exile, even if they sometimes, have sketchy season launches and stuff, people know that they have a track record of delivering great content over and over and over again every 3 months. So why wouldn't the players come back? And again, what good does it do if developers of Last Epoch rush out some form of endgame content during the midst of the season, even though most players already have stopped playing, right? Last Epoch launched, and then, I don't know, somewhere around this time, I believe, Path of Exile came out with a new league. Do you actually believe that even though if Cycle 1 would have released here, these numbers would have gone back up? That's also something you need to consider. These games compete for players, right? They don't, like, people don't play those games. There's not like the Last Epoch player, there's the D4 player, there's the PoE player. I mean, there is, but there's also like huge overlap between those. Like I play 2 of these games. I don't play PoE, but I play Diablo 4 and Last Epoch, right? And I'm glad that I can basically switch back and forth between those games and they don't compete for my time. And I'm also glad that I can then be done in like 2 weeks. Like, let's be real.
Bring major content at the beginning of the seasons because they want to, number one, bring more players back and they want to have something to talk about. My point is, live service in ARPGs, oil and vinegar right now. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% not possible, but the way games are being.
This guy is. I don't get it. I honestly don't understand the point he's trying to make, right? Oil and vinegar? No, it's a match made in heaven. This monetization model, it fits so good for this kind of game. It's just insane that he can't see that.
Developed right now, and I'm talking specifically ARPG, okay, everyone? The way they're being developed and the way they're being consumed right now are oil and vinegar. And, correct me if I'm wrong.
Let me correct you. The way they are being developed is there's going to be new content every couple of months. The game players play it is they play for a couple of weeks and then they are done with the game. So how is this oil and vinegar? It's like if you put those two together, it's a perfect match. I don't get it.
Tell me what I'm not seeing. I don't see an immediate fix to this. You cannot deny the facts. Every single game.
What facts? There are. I'm still. This is blowing my mind. Where are the facts? Where is the argument for games needing to have like this kind of player curve? I don't get it. None have been made.
Path of Exile, up and down, up and down. I've showed you guys this already. Diablo 4, forget it. They got more problems than just keeping
how to spend all that money they made.
Consistent player base. Okay? And Last Epoch. How can you deny it? There's something wrong here. Do they need to get away from live service games?
What is wrong? Enlighten me. Why is it wrong? Why doesn't it work? How is this not great for pretty much everyone involved? I am really having a hard time recognizing. Like, let's talk about PoE, for instance. PoE players, they get great content every 3 months. They actually get to play the game over and over and over again. If they wouldn't be getting those upgrades, they wouldn't be playing it indefinitely. That's just how it works. Grinding Gear games, they make a free-to-play game. They need to have consistent influx of money, right? Something that they can rely on. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to make Path of Exile 2. They wouldn't be able to make a PoE mobile, right? And this kind of business model, it just works so great for all people involved, right? And if you are the kind of player that wants to keep on playing and playing and playing, what's stopping you? Nothing is stopping you. Just play. It's not like they go like, okay, we have reached like our 25% player threshold. Now we're shutting down the servers, right? That's not. I don't get it.
They just, I don't know. What did they do? What do you guys think? Because this is not good, because what ends up happening is these kind of discussions start forming. And look, these developers are trying everything they can.
What discussion? There is no discussion. I don't see the discussion. Like, you are creating issues out of thin air. Nobody is having issues. Neither the players, not the developers. They're in fact doing amazing. This is literally the best time to be an ARPG player ever. We have never had so many options in this genre, and the quality of all these options is phenomenal. Like, you can talk a lot of shit about Diablo, but that's like complaining actually on a pretty high level, in my opinion, at least.
To try to keep the player base here, but it's not happening. One by one, every game I mention, everybody comes and leaves, comes back and leaves, comes back. Live service. So I already see some of the comments. Well, if they created a good game, then maybe more players would stay. And you know what? You're kind of right.
So you're actually making the argument that these games are bad right now? Is that actually what you wanted to say? Maybe think about that.
But I don't think.
I mean, he's not saying it, but that's like the kind of logical conclusion that if they made a good game, we wouldn't have these problems. I think we have these problems, ergo, the game is bad. What a weird take.
RPGs and live service go hand in hand. And until a developer that is in the ARPG landscape discovers the golden bullet, the secret sauce to marry those two, I think this is what it is. We're all going to be in and out of ARPG games because no one's been able to.
And yet, why is that bad? Why do you feel like you need to be playing the same single player gear grinding game consistently for the rest of your life? Why is that such a desirable thing? Why do you want? I am having a real hard time to fathom why this is so bad. In my opinion, this is fucking. I can play a game, I can enjoy it for X amount of time. Considering what kind of player I am, this time might be very short, it might be very long, but there is a lot of players. And when I'm done with it, there's like at least 3 other great games of the same type that I can play and now enjoy. This is why I stopped playing StarCraft 2, because it was consuming all my enjoyment of the whole medium of video games, right? And that's limiting, right?
Identify the secret sauce. So let me know what you think. I wanted to discuss this because there has been a lot of discussion around this. People nipping away at this topic. You know, what happened to Last Epoch? What's going on with Diablo 4? Path of this is how I play.
Let's make one thing clear. These kind of discussions, this is just artificially generated, like doomsday shit. That's just how it is. Content creators, they like to rag on these kind of things because that gives them clicks. This doesn't represent the reality of things. At least Diablo 4, you could argue about the state of the game, like the items and stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I'm pretty sure that nobody is crying a lot at Blizzard because they're probably making a ton of money with that game. They are pretty happy with the game. And they know for sure that the next add-on is going to be it's going to make them a lot of money. Of course, they don't want to squander all the goodwill of the players, so that's why they're actually trying to improve the game, right? But it's not like the game is a disastrous failure. The same for Last Epoch. The game was amazing successful. They've made a lot of money, and now they have got a lot of resources to put into the game, and that's what we're going to see. This is great. Why would anybody think that Last Epoch is a failure? That's insane. And that's only because people like the drama and want to make content about that kind of stuff. That's the reason why every time you open like a newspaper, there's like a new article about some electric car burning down in a random garage or whatever, because people like to create drama about electromobility, right? Even though it has nothing to do with the reality about safety of cars or anything, right? Sorry for the little what you call it, distraction there. But in my opinion, it's just artificially blown up drama. Last Epoch is a major success, and these numbers just look like any other ARPG before, and there's nothing wrong about it.
Path of Exile. The league comes out, I get my fill, and I'm out. And I come back. That's just the way I play Path of Exile. Now, please, I understand. Every one of the games that I mentioned, there are loyal players. Regardless of what's going on with the game, they play it. However, that is a small percentage compared to the massive player base that's out there waiting to consume games. And that's what these developers are trying to get. So let me know what you think.
So is his argument that Path of Exile isn't reaching its full potential? I mean, yes, but that's also kind of by design. Path of Exile is designed to be a super complex game. And the interesting part about it is if you actually look at these graphs, this is super consistent. They have carved out their share of the market that they can reach, and those players return every single time. And in order to actually broaden this gap, they would go more mainstream, but that's not the game they're going to make, right? That's also a point. Not all games are about reaching massive player numbers, right? They just want to make the game that they wanted to play themselves. That's how GGG started, right? And then they've carved out their market segment, and it's actually probably much bigger right now than they've ever dreamt of. And that's okay, right? So also not really a good argument, in my opinion.
You have a solution. Do you agree? Am I off my rocker? Is live service? There's nothing wrong with live service. Just the developers got to get good and make better games. Anyway.
No, and no, nothing wrong with live service, and the games are actually great. Like, I don't know. How could you argue that Lost Epoch is a bad game? How is that even a thing? Is there potential? Of course, there's always potential. You can always make a game bigger, better, greater, better looking, right? But that doesn't mean that this is a bad game. The same goes for Path of Exile. Even though you could argue, no, there's a lot of potential, right? If they would just shrink down the skill tree and stuff like that, they could reach so much more players, but they don't want to. And then the same about Diablo 4, right? There's a lot of players saying, oh, it's lacking a lot of depth, and it's not super complex, but that's also good for a lot of people, right? A lot of people enjoy that, and that's why Diablo 4 actually has I would assume it still has quite a lot of players, and I would also assume that every season of Diablo 4 smashes pretty much all the numbers Path of Exile will ever have, at least for PoE 1 during seasons. Like that's just Diablo and Path of Exile. That's still like two very different games and very different leagues of popularity. So that's just my take on it.
Let me know your comments. Get in there. Would love having a debate with you guys. And if you could like, comment, and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And believe me, the second one of these ARPG developers get the secret sauce and find it and implement it in the game, I'll be all over that game for sure. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. And as always, we'll hope to see you next time. Take care. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed.
I mean, whose opinion should it be? But yeah, that's pretty much my take on this. It's wow. Oh man, I'm just seeing how long I've been talking. Sorry about that. As I said, I'm usually not the kind of guy who does this reaction thing because I get a little bit riled up about that stuff and then I get intense. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but maybe I am. I would be curious about what you guys think about it. If you like this kind of content or not, if you want to see different kind of stuff from me, make sure if you like it to do the thumb thing and the subscribe thing and all that stuff. Again, this is I got off a little bit standoffish at some points, but this is not about the guy. I don't know the guy. It's just about this recurring opinion that I've now at least seen twice by content creators, and it just bothered me, to be honest. I so strongly disagree with all this stuff, so that's why I had to get it off my chest. Now, yeah, let me know what you think. I see you at the next time, and yeah, bye. Damn.